I mentioned maybe a week or so ago when I did my last live stream, I talked about some of my favorite Marvel Comics writers. I thought the next time I had an opportunity to just take a few minutes to go live, I would tackle some of my favorite DC comic writers. So that's what I'll be looking at today. My live stream setup obviously still needs a little work, but I'm just starting to get into these live streams, so hopefully I'll get a better setup as time goes on, especially if this is something that everyone likes frequenting. I'm also hoping to get more of a schedule, but right now, like I've shared, with my responsibilities as they are, I try to get away when I can to do this. So here we are. As you can see, I've done the vertical live stream. So far, I'm enjoying that because I think it showcases the bookcase a bit better. But anyway, I'm going to wait to see if any more people trickle in. But then I'm going to go ahead and just start talking about some of my favorite DC Comics writers. If you are in the chat, feel free to share a comment, maybe give a like if you're enjoying it. I already see a couple likes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Like I said, I'm newer to live streaming, but really enjoying it. So thank you. But we're going to go ahead and jump into some of my favorite DC comic writers. I'm sure I'm going to miss some. I know for Marvel, for example, I forgot to bring up Ed Brubaker for Captain America, which is one of my favorite comic runs. So anyway, I'm sure that'll happen here with DC, but I just wanted to name a few. I think we might go from right to left this time because why not? First, I'm going to talk about Tom Taylor. I've read a couple things from him over on the DC side of the fence, notably the beginning of his Injustice run, as well as his time here on Nightwing. I'm a little bit behind on this title. This is getting a ton of buzz over the recent years, and there's a good reason for that. I think it's one of my favorite Nightwing runs of all time. I know I'm not in the minority there. Let's see. Got people saying hi here. Lex of Power, I really want to read Tom Taylor's Nightwing. Yeah, honestly, it's a really good run so far. I'm still making my way through it, but what I've read has been phenomenal. I know that he is getting ready to close out his time on Nightwing soon, so maybe a good time to start diving in. Afro SF, hi Dom, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hello, can't stay long as it's basically my bedtime. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming out, Connie. Really, really cool. Yeah, see the upload later. Absolutely. Thank you for coming out. Big fan of Tom Taylor's Nightwing. I'm a bit behind. Yeah, so me too. I'm a volume or two behind at the moment. I think the last thing I read was The Leap. Does that sound right? I don't know. I may be a little bit behind that even. But yeah, having a good time here. Maybe I'm on The Leap. Anyway, for those that don't know Tom Taylor's Nightwing, let me see if I can clip my mic so I can use both hands, maybe get a sampling of the artwork from Bruno Redondo. This is probably going to tip. That's all right. Okay, so this is the first volume of the Nightwing run in a standard size hardcover. It's beautiful. Not only is Tom Taylor's Nightwing really good, as far as artist goes, Bruno Redondo is incredible on this run. I wasn't familiar with this artist whatsoever before this run, but just love what he's doing on this title. Color palette as well. The colorist really should be commended. Really great stuff. This is a really fun Nightwing run. I think it's pretty good for new readers as well. But believe the hype. It's really, really fun. I think it's just a really good time. And as you might have heard, but certainly can see now, my whole pile just sort of fell over. But anyway, really like Tom Taylor. Like I said, I've read Injustice, and that actually might be it on this side. Oh no, I read some of Deceased as well, which I believe was Tom Taylor. A really incredible series. At least that first run. I have to read some of the sequels. I've also read Tom Taylor at Marvel with Dark Ages, which was a fun miniseries, and the all-new Wolverine, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. Let's see, any more comments? Greetings all, hello. I'm going to keep going. So someone else I kind of forgot to talk about on Marvel's list that I need to talk about now, I added him as an afterthought, but I wanted to spend a little more time, is Mark Waid. Mark Waid is a fantastic writer. He obviously, like some of these writers, does more than just DC, but some of my favorites here. We got Superman Birthright, the deluxe edition oversized hardcover. I had an opportunity to review this, I think, last year. Really fun. I had read it before, but having the deluxe edition, really fun. I also finally got a copy of Kingdom Come. I used to, I think, have a copy of this, or I read it a long time ago, and then I just didn't have it in my collection anymore. Wasn't sure if I sold it, but anyway, got a copy not too long ago as well. This is sort of the dystopian future of the DC Universe. Written by Mark Waid, illustrated by the incredible Alex Ross with that painted style. Absolutely gorgeous. If there's anything here I haven't reviewed on the channel, by the way, or you'd like me to speak more about, let me know. I can try to definitely showcase that in the future. Yeah, so this is Birthright. This is a Superman origin story for those that haven't read it. If you're a fan of things like Smallville, I definitely see some some familiar things in this little Superman origin story. I'm a huge fan of the Smallville TV series myself, so this is a really welcome reading experience. Art pretty great as well, but yeah, this is a really good one. I think this and Superman's Secret Origin are maybe my favorite Superman origin stories. I'm not sure. If there's more I should read, let me know. I've read a couple. You know what? I just realized too, Mark Waid, we're talking DC. I have to also bring up his incredible run on The Flash. So I think volume 2 of this is coming out later this year or early next year, but I had the opportunity to read this volume 1, and this is just awesome. Wally West is Flash. He had been Flash for a while. Mark Waid takes over, introduces us to the Speed Force, a bunch of other speedsters, and a ton of lore building. Really a fun read so far. Can't wait to read more of that Flash run sometime in the future. Let's see. Got some more comments here. Anything by Geoff Johns. Of course, you know I'm going to be talking about Geoff Johns. Although now that I say that, I'm not sure what I did with my Geoff Johns comics. Oh, you know what? I have a stack of books I meant to use for this video that didn't make it onto the shelf. Hold on. I'm really happy someone brought up Geoff Johns. Ta-da! This was also supposed to be in the video. Realized I forgot, but here's some more. Kingdom Come was a disappointment for me. Okay, well, that's fine. Not everyone's cup of tea. The writing is kind of apocalyptic in a way. I will say that could throw some people off, but the art is just gorgeous, epic in scope. Kingdom Come is amazing. I love that those comments are right next to each other. It definitely takes all kinds. You need Bronze or Silver Age comics. You know, I love a good Bronze or Silver Age comic here and there. For DC, Silver Age, I really love The Flash. I just don't know writing-wise if some of those Silver Age books hold up for me quite as well as the modern ones, if I'm honest with you. Jesus loves you, says Joshua. He certainly does. Thank you so much. I am a believer myself, so appreciate that comment. Okay, another DC writer. Yes, I probably could have picked something like Swamp Thing or Watchmen, but we're going to be talking about Alan Moore, and I thought I'd pick up this because it's kind of fun, and it's something in my collection that I haven't really spoken too much about. But basically, really fun stuff. So this is kind of a bunch of one-off stories from Alan Moore in the DC universe. This is a standard size hardcover. But yeah, I mean, this is a really prolific story here. I really like this. But anyway, there's like some Green Lantern stories. Obviously, a really popular Superman story here. Really fun read as well. But Alan Moore obviously understands character, structure, and he really understands the medium of comic books. You know, really, you know, for those that maybe don't know, Watchmen, Swamp Thing, V for Vendetta, so many more. But he's done a ton of stuff at DC that I think is really commendable. And this is just a really fun collection. Thought I'd talk about him a little bit. Tom King thoughts. Ooh, we will get there. He's on my list. We're looking for a great read. Okay, let's see. Isn't that Alan Moore collection out of print? You know, it's possible. Last time I checked, you could still find them on secondary markets like eBay for fairly cheap. But admittedly, it has been a while since I've looked. Used to have Killing Joke in it as well. Oh, yeah, Killing Joke. Yeah, so my copy doesn't have Killing Joke, but I do have that down here somewhere. But that's another great Alan Moore work as well, or at least certainly prolific. No, it's not DC, but any thoughts on Last Ronin? Talking about the kind of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles final story future miniseries, kind of the Dark Knight treatment. I did read that over at, I think it was IDW, forgive me if I'm wrong. I thought it was great. You know, I actually did not hold on to my copy because I don't have the rest of that whole world, but I did enjoy the story. I think it's a really great miniseries. It could stand alone pretty well if you know anything about the Turtles, even culturally. If you played video games, saw movies or comics, I think you'd be fine reading it. I liked the time reading it myself. Art was great, writing was great. Okay, I'm going to talk about Geoff Johns for a little bit. I'm so happy the commenter mentioned Geoff Johns. He was the first set of comics I grabbed for today's video, and then of course I left it on the shelf. So I'm happy you reminded me. So many things from Geoff Johns that I've loved. Green Lantern, Hawkeye, what I've read of Justice Society, Flash, Aquaman, so much more. For this video, I'm just picking two kind of random ones. We're going to be looking at New 52's Aquaman. This was, again, during that New 52 era after Flashpoint, so it's really accessible to new readers, got some incredible artwork going on. This first story arc, The Trench, has to do with these really deep undersea monstrous dwellers, these creatures of the trench. If you've seen the Aquaman movie, they could be a little familiar here. But really just tight narrative, great focus on character, art, and it makes Aquaman a little more serious. What I like to say about Geoff Johns is that he's written some of my favorite stuff, but he's so consistent for me that even when I don't love a Geoff Johns book, if I pick it up, I almost always am at least gonna like it. He's just one of the most stable writers I've ever read. I almost always enjoy picking him up. He has, in my mind, the definitive run on Green Lantern as well, and he is my favorite Flash writer I've read so far. This is the beginning of his Flash run, for those that haven't. Check this out. Occurs after the Mark Waid era. Really fantastic run. Also follows Wally West. This art style here is actually pretty typical for what you can expect from most of the run. So that's as a heads up. The art is fun, get a lot of sense of motion. It's not my favorite, but the writing, really excellent. And if you're a fan of the Rogues galleries of villains, this brings back a lot of classic Rogues and gives them so much heart. You really care about these characters. It's really fascinating. I think that that's where he shines. I would say from what I've read of Mark Waid and all of I've read of Geoff Johns, I would say that Mark Waid I edge out for characterizing Wally a little better, but Geoff Johns definitely understands the rest of the villains, I think, a little better. Anyway, fantastic run there. Love Geoff Johns. What are the best Rebirth comics, in your opinion? So this is the DC era Rebirth after that kind of Flashpoint New 52 era. Relaunches a lot with Rebirth. This example right here, I'll just do this next. For example, this is the Batman Rebirth era under Tom King. Takes place after the Scott Snyder New 52 era. This for me is one of my favorite Rebirth titles. I'll admit I'm still making my way through a majority of them. I've liked what I've read. I think this to me is really near the top, as well as the Detective Comics Rebirth era. Quite strong. Still making my way through this. James Tynion the Fourth. This is really a Bat family book. Batman is in it, but the team is really head up by Cassandra Cain, Batwoman. Tim Drake's there for a little bit. Spoiler, a couple other people. But yeah, really like Detective Comics, really like Batman for Rebirth, but I am open for Rebirth recommendations because I'm still making my way through. So if anybody has any great DC Rebirth era recommendations, please shout them out, let me know. Are you getting the Williamson Flash Omnibus? That's a great question. I'm not sure yet. I have 2 of the oversized hardcover editions already that are comparable to this guy for the Flash. I liked what I've read of Joshua Williamson's, love the art, love the introduction of a couple new characters, but I didn't love it, so I'm not sure if I'm going to upgrade or not. I would love to finish that run someday though. Geoff Johns Booster Gold. Oh, I haven't read his run on Booster Gold. Thank you for the recommendation there. I feel like Geoff Johns hasn't been the same since post-Doomsday Clock, 3 Jokers. Flashpoint Beyond, JSA. Yeah, I haven't read the new JSA stuff, just some of the older stuff. Flashpoint Beyond was okay, but I think that I almost would have preferred it as like a one-shot. I don't think it held a candle to its predecessor, but still fun. I will say, if you haven't read Geoff Johns over at Image in his unnamed universe, Geiger, Junkyard Joe over there with Gary Frank, highly recommend it. That's some really contemporary Geoff Johns stuff I've really loved. But yeah, going back to Tom King now. Tom King is a very polarizing writer for whatever reason. I really like Tom King. I think that his writing is kind of beautiful. There's a kind of lyricism to it in many ways. I feel like his choice of language is kind of poetic and beautiful. And I'm just a huge fan. Seeing him on Batman was one of the first times I was ever introduced to his writing. And I loved it. I have all of his run across these deluxe editions, 1 through 6. Unfortunately, some of them are out of print, but I'm hoping someday we'll get some omnibuses for those that want to collect it, and maybe even myself if I want to upgrade. Quick note about that, though, actually. First 3 volumes have this beautiful glossy print paper stock. Volumes 4 through 6 go to the matte paper that DC's been doing. Also, first 3 are this white spine. 4 through 6 randomly go to black. So on the bookcase, it looks a bit uneven, but collector's note, if you're seeking out these deluxe editions, there is a bit of lack of uniformity, but still a great way to get that collection. A couple more instances of Tom King I like at DC. Man, I've talked about this book maybe more than any other on my channel recently. This was my favorite book for 2023. I had the pleasure of reading Tom King on writing, Bilquis Evely on art. Never encountered that artist before. Absolutely fell in love. This is like fantasy, gorgeous. Just like I felt like I was in this beautiful dream reading this. Kind of a buddy coming of age, finding yourself narrative, interstellar, just travel narrative. One part revenge story, and you got that beautiful writing from Tom King through a lot of narrative, kind of interstitials, exposition dumps. But like I said, it kind of reads like poetry. I'm just a huge fan. I don't find pretension in it. I just enjoy it. So unapologetic Tom King fan over here, just saying. Last thing from Tom King I'm going to showcase for today. There are, of course, other great titles from him at DC, but Batman Killing Time. This is not part of his main Batman run. It's a standalone kind of mini-series that takes place earlier in the Batman's career, back at a time when Catwoman and him are still really villains. It's like Catwoman, Riddler, a couple other faces, but really, really fun, just standalone story. I really highly recommend it. I don't think enough people talk about Killing Time, but really, really solid, and just love reading more Tom King. Also, this image is a little boring, so I'm going to put some of the books back so people can kind of see it as we keep talking, and I will take a look at the comments. Okay, what have I missed? Peter David work at DC is fantastic. Okay, I'm so happy you brought up Peter David. I've just gotten into him in the last year after reading some of X Factor. I've kind of fallen in love with him. I haven't yet delved deep into his Hulk run. I've read just a couple issues of it. I missed out on the omnibuses, but maybe one day. Still going through X Factor. Now I'm into X Factor Investigations era. And I'm reading Spider-Man 2099, and my wife and kids actually got me the Captain Marvel Genis Vell Omnibus by Peter David for my birthday this past week. My birthday was on Monday. So anyway, reading all that from Peter David on the Marvel side of the fence, but for DC, I've heard he's really good on Aquaman, but I would love more recommendations. I think he wrote Supergirl too. But yeah, give me those Peter David DC recommendations. Would love to hear that. I like Doomsday Clock. Yep, I still need to read that actually. That Tiny and Detective Comics Omnibus is amazing. Yes, yes, yes. Deathstroke Rebirth. Hey, thank you for the recommendation. I've heard good things about that. Hey, Dominic, hope you had a good day. Ooh, will you be getting the two Jack Kirby Fourth World Omnibuses if you don't have them? So you know what? I think Jack Kirby's really only attached to that first omnibus. I think the second part, I don't believe Jack Kirby is really the creator on it as much as it's kind of those same properties and continuing on the stories that Jack Kirby was involved in after he left. Could be wrong on that. To answer that question, I don't know. If I find it for the right price, I love the artwork. I think that era is really interesting. I just haven't prioritized picking those up yet, but maybe I will someday. The detective run was fantastic. So was Jurgens Action Comics and Tom Gleason's Superman. Yeah, you know, I have Gleason's and Tomasi's Superman right over here. Still going through that, really loving it. I also just got this for my birthday, the Detective Comics run from Tomasi. Heard really mixed reviews on that, but I started it, read the first arc, and really liking it so far. So stay tuned on that. I might have more thoughts in the future. Has he mentioned Scott Snyder yet? The great and powerful Dodd. You know I'm getting to Scott Snyder. That's the last writer I'm going to be talking about. He's another one that I think a lot of people are, you know, I've heard mixed reviews, but I'm an unapologetic fan as well. Ed Brubaker's Catwoman. Yep, I've read a little bit of that. Looking forward to when we get Tom King Batman one day. Yeah, hopefully we get an omnibus for everyone who needs that. Green Lanterns and Hal Jordan Green Lantern Corps. Yep. If you had to pick a DC book for Jonathan Hickman and Rick Remender, what would it be? That is such a great question. I would do something, I don't know, do you think Jonathan Hickman would be good on something like Legion of Superheroes, or maybe something like Doom Patrol? Something like just off the beaten path I think would be really good for Hickman. Maybe Booster Gold. Rick Remender, I'm still getting into Rick Remender, so I don't have a good feel for his voice quite yet. But I'd love to hear who you think he would be good on for DC. Definitely getting the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow Deluxe Edition. Yeah, I'm really tempted to upgrade to that as well. That in oversized artwork, I'm sure is just gorgeous. Hickman on Green Lantern. Oh, I would read that in a heartbeat. John's Avengers was just okay. I didn't read that. Do you have any Absolute books? What a great question. I actually have no DC Absolute editions. I'm hoping one day that's an even more oversized format that's even bigger than the omnibus oversize. If you want content about DC Absolute collections, I highly recommend the Brave and the Boys, my friend Jake over there, and I think Jordan. They do a lot of content on Absolutes. Jake actually has almost all of them. So if you want more content on the Absolute editions, highly recommend Jake from the Brave and the Boys. He'll have you hooked up. I would love to get Absolute editions someday, but again, we'll just see. Time will tell. Okay. Today marks the day, April 25th, 2024, when the Flash vanishes in Crisis. Oh, is that true? Oh, that would be fun. New to Jonathan Hickman, run Raven Black Label for Origin. Oh, that would be interesting. Do you have the Final Crisis omnibus? Oh, not yet. That's definitely on my list. I have Infinite Crisis and 52. I would love to get that Final Crisis Omni one day. I just have Final Crisis in paperback, but I am a fan of that. Okay, I'm going to go on to the last writer I have set out. Like I said, there's a ton more, but we're going to be talking about Scott Snyder, one of my absolute favorite writers, and this is where I was introduced to him. Another book I showcase on the channel all the time, just because I'm a huge, just rabid fan for it. I fell in love with The Court of Owls. For those that don't know, or maybe I haven't shared, I really started collecting comics around the New 52 era. That's when I really started to kind of build my collection, and so this was the New 52 era Batman, so accessible to new readers, and this just really became my Batman. I went back and read earlier stuff, of course. I had read some stuff before it, but this was what was really selling on the shelves and really was just in, getting buzz. And so this was just my Batman. I think the first couple story arcs of this run in particular are just some of my favorite Batman run, like comic stories of all time. I just love it. The art from Greg Capullo, from Spawn fame, among other things. But I had never really encountered him either, and this Tour de Force team, it just really blew me away. Never get tired of Scott Snyder's Batman. It's a one of a 2-volume set. I have the second volume down below here. But I think Scott Snyder's just amazing. He's another one that can kind of get into the kind of lyrical, poetic side, especially when he kind of frames narratives with those exposition bubbles, things like that. Another early Snyder era book I read at DC was actually Batman Black Mirror. Didn't have that set up, but this is another great story. I think especially if you like your big 2 books to lean a little bit more gruesome or horrific, psychological thriller or horror, I definitely recommend Black Mirror. This is at a time when Dick Grayson, who's more commonly known as Robin or Nightwing, takes over the cowl as Batman. And this is one of his adventures. Also, like I said, written by Scott Snyder, art from Jock and a couple others. But amazing story. I believe I reviewed this on the channel not too long ago. Yeah, okay, so I'll answer a couple more questions. It might be a quicker live stream today. So many more DC writers, of course. Would love to hear some of your favorites. But let's answer a few questions, and then I will start wrapping it up for today. But thanks, everyone, for coming out. Let's look at some of those questions, though. What's your opinion on the all-new, all-different Marvel? Again, like the DC Rebirth, the all-new, all-different Marvel is not an era I've read overly extensively, but there are a couple that I've really enjoyed. Like, I know Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and the All Reds, one of my favorite series of all time. You can actually see it in Omnibus right there. That had definitely some of that all-new, all-different era, and I adored that. There's been a couple like that too, so I think overall, as a generalization, it still just depends on, hey, is it good? Is it solid? I've read some titles from there I've really liked, and some that have been just so-so for me. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did an amazing job with Batman. How was Batman Detective Comics Omni by Peter Tomasi? I'm happy you brought that up. I did mention it a little bit earlier in the live stream. I just got this in for my birthday on Monday from my incredible family, so I'm just reading this now. You can actually see where I'm at. Let's see. Right there. So I've read the first story arc, but I thought it was great. Comment I received from BJ Kicks. If you know Brandon over at his channel, Comics Are Dope, really good friend of the channel. He mentioned that this run was really fun, the Tomasi Detective Comics run, but he said don't really look out for a big one single epic storyline. Instead, look for a couple just pretty solid stories. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Read it more like a sequence of almost like Batman anthology rather than, again, one just colossal epic. So I'm trying to take that in mind, but again, so far, really loving it. Best Scott Snyder Batman story is Black Mirror. Yep, that's a great one. I had to showcase that on the video. I had to go find it so I could show everyone. Did you read the recent Batman Spawn? You know, I didn't. I'm not overly into Spawn myself. I've dabbled, but I'm sure it's a fun crossover. Wasn't the New 52 inspired the DCEU? Inspired by? I believe it came out before the DCEU, but who knows? I wish Marvel would have caught the error on the Avengers by Hickman Omnis, but I'm glad we have 2 volumes. What I hope you're talking about is the spines. If there's further errors, that's going to be a bummer. But yeah, for these reprints that Marvel did for the Avengers by Hickman, the A, as you can see, doesn't quite line up. I think in the original printing, you get one just A logo for Avengers across the 2 volumes. And again, didn't quite make it, but I'm fine with it. I'm really happy to have those Omnis. Interested in the Secret Six Omni by Gail Simone. I am really interested in that. I was introduced to the Secret Six in the pages of the Infinite Crisis Omnibus. It looks like a really cool kind of rogue anti-hero team. I'm sure that it's pretty solid. What I've read from Gail Simone has been really solid. I'm still making my way through her Batgirl run actually right here from the New 52. If anyone's read that, I'm really enjoying this as well if you're a fan of Batgirl. Have you read Snyder's Justice League or the Metal events? No, haven't read that Justice League run. I've heard good things about it from Illuminati, Tyler over there, another friend of the channel. But I have yet to read that myself. I have read the first Metal event from DC. I read that in paperback. I thought it was okay. Wasn't my favorite, but I love getting the band back together with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. But let me know if I need to stick with it. You know, I know that Death Metal Omnibus came out not too long ago. Happy belated birthday. Hey, thank you so much. Is that your bookshelf or are you in a comic store? Oh, no, that's my bookcase. There's my PlayStation over there, my laptop, just in my room. Let's see. What is your favorite Gail Simone run? You know, honestly, that's a great question. I know she's a really prolific writer. I'm curious about her run on Wonder Woman. I know that got an omnibus recently. I haven't read extensively Gail Simone. This is actually one of the only titles I've been reading, but I like it so far. And I've seen her pop up in a couple other things. And she's someone as a writer that maybe like a lesser extent, like with Geoff Johns, the same comment, where everything I have read from Gail Simone, I've enjoyed. So, you know, I enjoy her so far. But as far as recommendations, I'm still making my way through her library. I've been on the fence about the Batgirl Omnibus. Yeah, you know, I'm still getting through it myself. I'm a couple arcs in. I'll just show you some art from it, if that helps at all. I think the art's actually really polished in this. I like the style. And it's New 52, the beginning of it, so you don't need to know anything. You can just kind of dive right in. This is also known for when she comes back after being Oracle. Kind of controversial, but I honestly think it's done really well. Also, the Under the Dust Jacket art. The people who made this collection, it's just like really phenomenal artwork. Even the end pages are this kind of beautiful, yeah, look at that. Anyway, it's a really nice omnibus. I'm really happy I have it. Like I said, I'm still making my way through. And I believe this actually leads into that Batgirl of the Burnside era, which I have also not read. But another omnibus for Batgirl and New 52. If I may ask, what's your favorite hero and why? Great question. Love getting asked that. My favorite superhero character is actually Daredevil. Why is that? That's a little bit harder for me to say. I think I love his contradictions. You know, he's dressed like a devil, but he's a man of deep faith. You know, he's fighting for the law in the court of law by the book, but then he's going out at nights as a vigilante. He's trying to, you know, keep the peace, but he's a man of intense violence. And I just feel like he has been gifted with some of the best writers in the recent decades, that almost every run on Daredevil in the contemporary sense of it has been a major hit for me. So he's just been one of the most consistently written characters for me. Has drawn some great industry top creators, and I'm really into him. I just think he's really interesting, especially since the Frank Miller kind of relaunched him in the like late 70s and 80s, kind of retooled his origin story, added ninjas and a lot of kind of noir, gritty crime aspects to his mythos. This character just popped for me. Love Daredevil. He's my number one. Then probably Batman. But yeah, thanks for asking. I'm interested to see what Gail Simone brings to X-Men. You know what? All 3 of those X-Men books they've announced post this Krakoa era, I'm really interested in. I think it's a lot of cool creative teams, and we'll just have to see what happens, but I'm excited as well. Have you voted in the recent DC poll on Omar's channel? Not yet. I did vote on the Marvel one he did like a month or so ago, but I still need to do the DC one. Who's your favorite woman in Peter Parker's life? I'm always going to be a Mary Jane Watson. Great question. What's my favorite villain? Who's my favorite villain and why? You know, get back to me on that one. That's really a lot harder for me. I'm tempted to say someone like Magneto or Doctor Doom, but I got to think that through a little bit more. Being a Daredevil fan, is there a run that doesn't live up to your expectations? I don't like talking about the negatives, but Carson, I know you're a faithful watcher on the channel. I'm going to try to give it my best. Again, all of these writers and creators are so talented, so I don't want to like poo-poo any of this work. People work hard for this stuff, and it's so amazing. I'd love an opportunity to have it someday. You know, I'm wowed by these guys. So before I have any kind of commentary, I just want to get that out there. All these people are immensely talented. Was there a modern Daredevil run I read that I wasn't overly impressed with? I would say I'm not a huge fan of the Shadowland era. I think that was Andy Diggle. That took place directly before, I believe, the Mark Waid tenure on the book. I had a hard time with that. Was not my favorite era. Okay. Looking at the time now, I'm going to probably call the live stream short in a little bit here. So just a couple last minute questions. If anybody wants to talk anything, I'm happy to answer, and then I'm going to go ahead and sign out. But thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've enjoyed this so much. Like I said, someday I hope to get a better setup, but I've really enjoyed interacting with all of you. It's been a blast. Okay, Doctor Doom is my favorite villain of all time in Marvel. DC, I would say it's between Lex and Darkseid. Great choices. Yeah, so for Marvel, just off the cuff, I'm going to go Magneto or Doctor Doom. For DC, let's throw some out there. You know, Joker is obviously one of the most prolific, but I'm a little burnt out with Joker. I'm ready to see some more villains in the Batman universe. I like Reverse Flash, like Captain Cold a lot as DC villains. Lex Luthor is obviously a huge one, absolutely. Sinestro, I think is you know what, I'm gonna put Sinestro near the top. Really, really good stuff, especially with what Geoff Johns did. A really tragic and layered character. Who do you think would win in a fight, Batman or Moon Knight? Batman, without a doubt, no question. If I may ask, what's your favorite story? Comic book story. Let's do favorite comic book story. Actually, I don't even know. I might go Court of Owls just because it's one of my favorites, or The Long Halloween, but I don't know. What's my favorite comic story? That's so tough. I'm going to have to actually think about that a bit more. Are you excited for the upcoming Spider-Man by Nick Spencer Omnibus Volume 2? Yes, I have pre-ordered that from organicpricebooks.com, the channel sponsor. If you want to pre-order anything from organicpricebooks.com or order anything, you can use my discount code, TheComicBookReport. Save yourself $2. Do get a commission off people that use that code. But anyway, it'll save you $2 if you're interested. But yeah, pre-ordered that Nick Spencer Omnibus, so excited for that to come in a month or two. But I got to actually finish the Volume 1. I just wanted to get Volume 2 before it's sold out. Doctor Doom is not a villain. Isn't he an anti-hero? You know, the lines between that are a little blurry sometimes, especially with people that have such a long history, because I would make the same argument for Magneto as being kind of an anti-hero. But certainly they were initially cast in a villainous role. And I think Doctor Doom probably even more so than Magneto, in my opinion. Although he did have that tenure as the infamous Iron Man, where he was kind of Iron Man. I don't know. Depends on the era there. Best DC villain, low-key Darkseid. Yeah, great one. Hard to top that. He's definitely like a big bad in DC. How excited are you for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie? You know, I'm pretty darn excited. I think that that's going to be fantastic. Okay, well, I think with that being said, here are some of my favorite DC writers. Thank you guys for coming by. If you think of any more questions, you can just comment on this video when it gets uploaded. A couple of you that I'm sure hopefully will catch the replay. Thank you for watching. Everyone that came out, thank you for watching. And yeah, just appreciate all of you. Thank you for stopping by the Comic Book Report. Have a great day, everyone.